G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now a few weeks back I had a discussion with you lot, my subscribers, and a few of you other bastards that just tuned in. G'day, we're in Australia here. Anyhow, there might be subtitles. You can't understand the bloody accent. Now, yes, where was it? Alright, so shipbuilding, right? Now, shipbuilding. Now, I had been doing this great big series on the Arizona and there was lots to do and fix and pull out and root around and dig up the friggin' thing. And, you know, I got crook. If you watch the series, yeah, got crook. Liver stuffed, yeah, and I don't drink. That's another story. Apparently a chocolate and curry based diet isn't real good for your liver. Yeah, all right, well, enough of that. Now, anyhow, I put the question to you. Is it the Arizona that everyone loved? Well, you did like the Arizona, that was obvious, right? Or is it just for shipbuilding? You know, do you like to see me messing around with boats? And the resounding answer to that question was that it didn't matter. In fact, I gave you the choice of voting between the Arizona, I'd have to buy a new bloody kit because it's sold the other one, or a Varyag. Varyag. I don't know how you say it. It's Russian. Varyag. Sorry, guys. I know this is a very, very... Anyhow, this is what you voted for. Yes, all you guys, you... about 95% of you said, build the Russian one, Harry. Build the Russian. That looks interesting. Let's see this Russian one, all right? Now, I'm kind of glad because I don't have to go and buy another Arizona. I will one day. Honestly, one day I may pick up where I left off and have another crack at that Arizona, and I'll be a lot faster at it because I'm feeling a lot better. Let me tell you, being crook as I was, I got slower and slower and slower. I just couldn't bloody do anything. Couldn't function. If your liver's rooted, you're rooted. Anyhow, we're good now. We're coming real good. Yeah. Now, the Varyag. Yes, Viking. Apparently it means Viking in Rusky. Yes. So I'm told. Correct me if I'm wrong, comrade. Yes. Now, this is very, very, very famous ship, okay? Now, I won't go into exact details with the history, but basically the keel was laid down of all places in America. Yes, the Americans built this for the Russians. And that was basically before... That was before the 19th or the 20th century. It was in the 19th century, like 1899 or something. I laid down the keel. And then early on in the 20th century, it was presented to the Russians, and it's a protected cruiser. And she went into the Russian Navy back there before World War I, right? And was involved in a lot of famous battles. Now, I'm not going to go into details about those. You can look them up on bloody Wikipedia. But there is a song about this ship, because it faced off against a whole lot of Japanese pre-dreadnoughts and various ships there in the sea near Japan. Yeah. Again, didn't check my facts, did I? But anyhow, look, I'm not really going to bore you with that, other than this ship and the crew wouldn't surrender. And this is what's so famous about this thing, is what the Russians go on about, and they wrote a big song about it, is they wouldn't surrender, they wouldn't give up, and they hung in for bloody grim death, even the thing was getting peppered and bloody shot the shit. And in the end, they scuttled it rather than letting the Japanese take it. It was that big a thing. And both sides, the Japanese as well, were quite admirable. Admirable? Well, they were admirals, isn't it? But you know what I mean. They were impressed, yes. And the Russian sailors were all basically called heroes, and there you go. Now, the story continues from there. So she was scuttled, and she's lying there in the sea there off Japan sort of thing, you know. And... before World War I, the Japanese go and they dig the bugger up, right? Drag it out of the ocean, give it a lick of paint, you know, bog it here, bog it there, fix it up, and lo and behold, they turned into the tofu. No, the soya. It became their little bloody cruiser called the Soya, right? So I'll try and put a couple of pics up here as we go along, and maybe some facts, because, you know, I'm not real. Trying to do this from memory, right? And I've only just improved my liver, but my brain hasn't got any better. Anyhow, so the Japanese dug it up, floated it, fixed her up, and there you go. Then basically there was World War I, and that's, I think, is basically where it served. But at that stage, the Japanese sided with the Russians, right? And therefore, in a repatriation effort, they sold back the fixed up Soya back to the Russians again. And they quickly gave a bit of lick of paint, made it look like their own, and called it the Varyag again. So there you go. This girl, she's been all over the place. She's been all over the town. But anyhow, we have to show some respect because it's a very, very famous ship for the Russians there, basically pre-World War One, and then it went on to serve later on, and it had quite an illustrious history. All right, now you can do a couple of different versions of this ship. You could do it basically as she was in World War One, was sort of all grey. You could do it as the Japanese did it when it was the soybean, and it'd be all grey. Or, as on the cover here, you can do it pre-war, and it's lovely colours. I think, well, no, actually, it didn't go to battle with these. I think when it was sunk, it was all grey. But we're not going to do that. No, there's a beautiful colour scheme, and I'll show that later, where we've got the yellow funnels and the white hull and the green lower hull. It just looks really schmick. And in fact, there's a beautiful one in one of the Russian museums that is done that way. So I'm going to make this very pretty and very unusual. Anyhow, that's enough of a bloody history lesson. It was probably all wrong anyway, but with a bit of luck, I've corrected any of my gaffes over there. And don't write in and say, oh no, it was actually 1820. Yeah, look, it doesn't matter. We're building a plastic kit. I'm just letting you know this is a very, very famous ship. And because of that, Zvezda, we sometimes put out some pretty challenging kits. Well, this is one of their new ship kits, and boy, have they turned a corner and started producing some really good plastic. So this one being one of their most famous ships, they have done a bloody good job. So let's have a look at the plastic. Now, plus I bought a whole lot of odds and ends for this to really spruce it up. So we'll get into the box, we'll have a look at that, and then I'll come back at the end and we'll discuss what I'm going to do with this fantastic kit. And here she is. Yes, it's the Varyag. Now, it's beautiful box art, and that's one of the things that attracted me to this kit. And then I learned all the history about it and really became quite fascinated. Now, one of the things is a protected cruiser. Now, what that is, instead of having the big armament along the side of the hull, that big sort of belted protection here from basically shell shot and torpedoes, it has, look at the pic, it has a armour inside, a shield inside the hull, which then protects any shells that come through the deck. It protects the guts of the ship, so that's why it's called an armoured cruiser. Interesting design. Maybe that's what helped it through the battle, where it was getting pelted and clobbered by all the shell shot, right? Maybe that protective armour inside kept it going for so long. Who knows? But that's why it's called a protected cruiser. Right, now the box is typical from Zvezda. It's, a lovely box, and then you go to open it, right, oh, it's a bit stiff, which is good, and you get another box. It's a bloody Chinese puzzle. So that's okay. This one then clicks open. We've seen this before in the BT7 when I reviewed it. So it's a sturdy box, which is quite good, and therefore the parts are well protected, which they need to be, because basically you get everything in one bag, which is always one of my bugbears. But it was tightly wrapped, and none of the parts on the sprues were broken, so I was pretty happy with that. I did open it all up, and I ended up rebagging each individual sprue myself, so as I prefer that. That's how I prefer to sort of keep things. But it's still not too bad. Everything's in one bag, and there you go. Now, I've also got a few extras here. I bought these Pontos pedestals. More about those later. They're going to make it look real. Seeing as it's such a famous ship, and I should do it justice, these should look terrific on a stand. I picked up some yard arms. I was only really going for some barrels, just a few barrels. And then I picked up these yard arms, and they were only like half a shekel. So more about those later. They look very interesting. They should be a lot of fun, and they're the sort of things I always knock off ships, barrels and masts and that sort of things. My fumbling fingers snap them off. And what else we got here? There's the wood deck that I purchased. Now, surprisingly, in with this wood deck came some PE, which was terrific. So more about that later, about the choice of PE, because we're not going to put a lot of PE on the ship. We don't need to. The plastic is fantastic, and you'll see that as we get into the kit. So how about we get along now and look at the instructions. So here we have the instructions, and found this floating around in the box as well. They just, they're paper, they're not decals or decals. We had a big argument about that on one of the pages the other day. Decals. Yes, they're just paper. Let's cut them out and pop them on. So there you go. They only give you the option with the blue cross. That's the only one. Imperial Russian Navy. Yes, that's it. Okay, respect. Now, the instructions get a little bit bendy foldy because they're bigger than the box. Yes, so when they're in the box, they're sort of all folded up like that. So just bear with me because it's going to be a bit crunchy. So at the very first, they give you a nice little pic, which is the same one that's on the box art, and doesn't she look resplendent there? And you get the name in Russian, which I mean, we say Varyag, but that's beautiful. I don't know. I don't know what the letters mean. If you do, I'd be interested to know what that means. Is it actually pronounced exactly the same as that? Am I saying it right? I don't know. Let's get on with this. So you get a bit of a history, and checking through to make sure I hadn't made any big bloody gaffes. Yes, it was built by an American shipyard in 1899 for the Russian Imperial Empire. Well, yes, Russian Imperial Navy. And she displays 6,500 tons. She could do 23 knots, which is pretty good in those days, I tell you. And she had 1,252 millimetre, which is basically 6-inch guns. And, you know, that was quite a lot of firepower for back then. And she was put into service with the Russian fleet in 1901. So I got all that right. And that battle was called, and I'll probably say this wrong, Chemulpo. All right, Chemulpo? All right, okay. Again, I've probably embarrassed myself. But that was the battle. There it was against the Japanese fleet. And yes, they fought heroically, and on February the 9th, 1904, they didn't surrender the ship. They basically flooded it and let us sink to the bottom. So there you are. So I've got a few things right. My memory's not too rooted. Now, what I don't like is the fact that it's going to be a giant friggin' papyrus sheet, isn't it? So it's going to start there and all the way through to there. But we'll cope. But you can just fold it up to whatever you want, wherever you're up to. Okay. So starting at the beginning, you know, this is oh, I have to move some things out of the way. Yeah, I do not like these big foldy out ones. They really get up my nose. But anyhow, we'll cope. So usual blurb here, you know, make sure you cut the parts off the sprue. Don't cut your fingers off, and be very careful building your model because you don't want too much swearing. Usual sort of thing. You get a sprue map. That's quite good. Everything is clearly marked on the sprue map, so that's easy to find. As you can see, there's not a huge amount of sprues in this, and we'll get to the sprues in a sec, but what there is bloody nice. So the instructions start off with the building of the hull, and it's got some spaces which make it very solid in construction. Sort of a lot of the new ships they're building these days, they put the bulkheads in so that you can get a bit more strength, because quite often, especially with some of the larger 150 sail ships, they used to sag. You'd build the thing up, and then by the time you put superstructure on, all the way the plastic would sag and the deck would sort of buckle, and you know, you'd be sitting on your shelf a few years later, the whole thing would look bloody warped and wonderful. So a lot of people used to put a lot of, underneath the deck, they put a lot of plastic there to reinforce it. Well, these guys, at least Zvezda, is thinking ahead here, and their solution is to put these spaces in. Now, the drawback from that is the hull sides, as you'll see in the photos, might even pop one up here, with the hull sides, because there is a big lump of plastic there for this spacer, that means that there's a bit of distortion in the hull sides. Now, this brings up another interesting point, and a complaint by some people, is that the hull sides don't have any plating on the lower half. Now, I'm wondering if Zvezda realised that by creating the little spaces and the fact there will be a little bit of moulding issue there, they knew you're going to have to go through and sand. So what's the point of having all nice lower hull detail and you'll be sanding it all off trying to, you know, just sort out these little sinkholes? So maybe that's what they did, and they thought, well, you know, you can either score it up if you want to have hull plating, or you can just leave it and paint it, whatever. Okay, so they want you to start off by putting all these bits on. I won't do that, because if I do that, I will break them off during the build. So I leave all these little bloody bits of paraphernalia. They won't go on at all until the very end, when I'm basically going to start painting it, doing things with it. We straight away go onto the main deck and into the barrels. So pretty well one of my first videos when we start the series, probably only in a few weeks, I'll get something up. Well, I'll start doing the metal barrels, and they're a little bit different to ones I've done before, so that should be interesting, something different I can do. That's what I want to do. Each time I do a ship, I'll do the different things. If it's something I've done before, I'll probably just gloss over it. You can go back and watch one of the other videos. But as I approach new techniques and do things that are a bit more interesting, I will show them in detail, as I did with the Arizona. And I think that's what you all like, the fact that I went, here you go, here it is, every single boring, waffling bit. But it seemed to strike a chord in a lot of you, and I'm glad that you enjoyed my waffling and my in detail. So yeah, the deck will go on. They make up a little stand for it. We won't be using those because I've got little brass things. So I'll probably have to think at this stage about drilling holes and getting organised as far as those pedestals go. All right, sliding right along. We get into superstructure straight away and some of the secondary armament and ladders, although I'll be replacing those ladders with the PE ones, and of course I will be putting the laminated wood deck on, which is not going to be that hard because basically this is just a big flat thing. It's fairly easy. The funnels go in and they're going to be gorgeous. We're going to paint those up bloody, I think they're yellow or they're white with big red inside. Oh, there's lots of colours in this ship. It's really going to be good. It's not just the usual grey, buddy battleship grey. We're going to have some fun. Then there's this entire structure here, which is, I think, sort of walkways and things like that, so you can get around between the basically the forward structure, superstructure, and the rear superstructure, and that can be bought as a PE kit, but quite frankly, the plastic's not too bad in this, so I'm not worrying about that at all. I'm not replacing that. Then we get on to the davits, whatever that I think is to hang all the bloody little lifeboats, right? Now, you can buy PE alternatives and everything with these, but as you'll see in the plastic coming up, these are actually moulded really well. Oh, I'm so impressed with those. Zvezda has done a lovely job with this kit. They have obviously taken the time and trouble, being their one of their most famous ships, and they have done a beautiful job. So plastic is perfect. Don't have to muck around with that. And then we're really only getting into upper superstructure stuff and building that up, building the bridge. I've got, I might do a little bit of work on that. Well, the PE, I've got rails which come with the deck. They'll go on there. They're all part of that. So we build all that up and then flipping over. Oh, it's all bloody like flapjacks. There's a bloody reams and reams of this stuff. Flipping over here, we've got more of these bloody funnels, which I absolutely adore. Well, these are actually, they're not called funnels. I forget what they are. They drag air into the ship. They've got a name. I'll have to find out. I'll put the name down there. And I'll have those. I think they're the ones with the big red inside. They're gorgeous. More ladders, but I've got those in PE. These are the bright yellow funnels. Oh, they're going to look lovely. And then we'll get in, probably towards the end of the videos, into doing the masts. And we'll use those brass turned masts. Got to say that slowly. Yes, don't get your tongue stuck around that one. Then there's the, here, this is all the booms for the torpedo net. And you can buy a PE torpedo net and hang it off it, and it'd be lovely, you know. I've got that for my Zvezda Dreadnought. Got the whole PE bloody net and everything. And I probably would just do one side, not the other. So we might be able to just figure out a way to actually create a little net. I might be able to make it out of mesh or something. It would be nice to have one side with the net extended, and then the other side just it all wrapped up, you know. So we'll see. And then there's all the little boats. They're quite detailed, as you will see in the plastic. All the little bloody lifeboats and the motorboats and everything. They're quite gorgeous. And they're just lovely as they are in the plastic. So I'll just have fun building them out of the box. And then they go in. And that's it. You're done. You're finished. You can go home. Then you've got your colour schemes. As I said, there's quite a few. They only really tell you this is the Russian scheme, 1904, in grey. But there is a Japanese grey version as well, of course, when it's the tofu, the soya bean. But this is what I'm going to do, which as far as I can tell, we've got yellow funnels, we've got a white upper hull, and we have a green lower hull, which is just lovely. And there's golden detail on it, and there's just so much going on, and there's red inside of those little bloody air breathers. And look, it's just going to be pretty. It really is going to be quite lovely. So I'm looking forward to that. There's some rigging. We might even do a video on rigging using Easy Line, or I might even use my model Claston stuff, which is even finer. So we've got quite a bit of rigging to this. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Rigging, don't get scared. I'll show you an easy way that I do, which is basically foolproof. Here's the Yamato I did. Look, I'll rig that egg boat. Anyhow, there you go. So that's the instructions, and it's really quite straightforward. There's nothing hugely complex there. There's no massive surgery to be done as such. There's basically just replace the barrels, replace the yard arms with the brass, replace the stairs with the PE ones, put the laminated wood deck on. This one's a really easy one because it's not staggered and stepped. It's all straight through. I don't think we're going to have too much trouble building this kit. I think it's going to be a joy, and I'm really looking forward to it. Anyhow, let's have a look at the plastic. Now, this hull is beautifully moulded. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Look at it. crystal clear, and there's even down to the fine detail here on the prow. That's that'll be all bronze, and you know, little details. I am speechless because this is a beautifully molded kit. Zvezda has really taken the time and the trouble to get it right. So very impressed with that. Now the only complaint, as I talked about in the instructions, was it's probably a bit hard to see, but if I flip it over, you'll get the idea. There's these extrusions here, which those spaces go in to give the thing some rigidity and strength so that the whole thing holds together and won't sag and fall apart, which is good, which is a good idea. But the end result of that is, and I think you can see it there by putting a bit of a light on, is you get this little depression and then a dimple. Okay, so it's got a bloody nipple. It's not much. It won't take a tiny bit of filler and sand it over it and it's gone. So it's not like a big deal, but that's probably the reason they didn't bother doing any sort of plating along the lower hull. And I suppose I could go and scribe it and try and do a whole lot of plating sort of effect, but quite honestly, it'd have to be very subtle anyway at this scale, 1/350 scale. So I might just paint it green and be done with it. Yeah, paper it. So that's very nice. Very impressed with that hull. Not a lot of portholes to drill out. Won't be like the bloody Arizona or little Grass Bay where there was something like 200 a side. No, this is it's quite good. There'll be barely 100 there to do on each side. It'll be much less than that. I reckon there's probably 100 all up. It's going to be an easy one. And the portholes, anyway, I mean, if you didn't want to drill them out, they would take a wash and they would look fine. They're beautifully done. Crisp, like the moulding is so sharp and crisp. They have taken the time. Zvezda has done a really good job. Really good job. Now, moving along to the next sprue. Deck. This deck is so well done. You don't have to buy a wood deck. You could just build it out of the box. Look at that. I hope the light's catching that and you can see. The planking is really fine, beautifully done, not exaggerated. It is lovely. I mean, one of the reasons I like a wood deck is I'm lazy. I'm a real lazy bastard. And the deck is like a mask. So rather than, having to paint everything and then get in and try and paint all the detail and mask around bloody superstructure, oh dear, no, I can't live long enough for all that kind of shit. No. So what I do is I can just spray that all whatever colour. In this case, normally it's grey, but this will probably be white for all the bits and bobs here. And then I'll put my wood deck on. Done. The deck masks it all up, and just the all the little superstructure bits and the bobs and what have you, they all pop up through. Brilliant. So that's one of the reasons. Plus they look really nice. I like staining them up, and they look terrific. There's that's the walkway, which is say there is a PE version you get of that, but I don't know why you'd bother. That is so nicely moulded. And we've got the date here, 2005, so that's when this moulding was done. So it's a few years back, but I tell you what, they took their time and trouble and used the best of the technology at the time. So again, that's the bow, I believe. Yeah, that'll be the bow because there's the cut-ins there for the anchors. So that is lovely. The mast and the yardarms are beautifully moulded, but we won't be using those. And those will be the stabilisers for the back there. So look, it's very nice bit of plastic. Moving along. Now here's the rest of the deck. That would probably be the stern. And just look at the detail here. Crisply moulded. And we've got, these look like some of the funnels. I mean, look at the ladders on there. Yes, you could put some PE ones on, but quite frankly, they are so crisp and clear. And in fact, if we're going to start looking at some of the things that are crystal clear, look at those davits. Sorry about my shaky wobbly hand. See the tiny little hook? There's a tiny little hook there. Look how crystal clear they are. No flash, no badly moulded seams, no mismatching. Just, it is a beautiful kit. It really is. It's up there with basically any of your other model ship kits as far as quality goes. They really have done the deal here. Zvezda knew this was quite an important ship to their history, so they have bothered to take the time and trouble, and they have done an absolutely magnificent job. So, you could just build this out of the box. You build this out of the box with no troubles at all, and you would still have a lovely kit. So there you have it. Moving along. We've got two of these, and these are more of the davits. but these have the boats in, and the boats are so beautifully done. So let's flip it over and I'll show you something in detail. Look at what's going on in there. They're so nicely done, these lifeboats. And that's just half of it, because then you get the top part that goes on. So, you know, you've got a beautiful result once you put all these pieces together, and you'll be able to wash in there and paint it all up. It is just lovely. It's absolutely lovely. They've done a wonderful job. And have a look at these. Now, okay, I'm putting metal barrels in, but you wouldn't have to. Honestly, you could just use these ones out of the kit. Look at them. They're so nicely molded. I don't know if this is slide molding. I really don't know. But I tell you what, the detail on these screws is wonderful. Here's all these lovely little air venty things. Still got to find out the name for that. It's probably be on the screen. More funnels. There you go. And the motorboat, right? You get it in two halves. So that's allowed them to get a lot of detail and a lot of stuff in there. So look, they've done a wonderful job with all this plastic. It is a beautifully molded kit. It really is. You could build this out of the box, but I will, you know, put my metal barrels in. I like those. We can put those yard arms in. A little bit of PE in my wood deck, not a lot, and certainly no major surgery. So let's move along to some of that aftermarket, and let's see what little goodies I'm going to add to this. So this is the Wood Hunter deck. Now, Wood Hunter, I mean, the other decks I've put in have been, you know, Artworks and a Pontos and a few things like that, and they've all been lovely. But Wood Hunter's sort of new to me, and I think they're out of China, and their wood is a bit different and it's a bit unusual, and I think it really suits this subject, and it's going to give a very nice random sort of effect through, because look at all the grain. As you can really see, there's a lot of grain in there, and it hasn't been heavily cartoonized like the Artworks decks. My biggest complaint with those is they've got a lot of black on them, where they've drawn in all the edges and done all this work, supposedly that's how it should look, but to me it always gives it a bit of a cartoony effect. This to me is a lot cleaner, and by the time I put a wash on that, there's texture to it as well, I can feel. By the time I put a wash on that, I think that's going to come a bloody treat. And it'll give that kind of randomness of different coloured planks. So I'm really looking forward to trying out this wood deck. And you get a little anchor chain, that's good. They usually do that when you wood deck, because usually you scrape the one off on the plastic. And they throw in bloody PE as well. So I've noticed this with these Wood Hunter guys, you get a bit of PE, which is rather nice. So I've got all the ladders that I need, and there's even a few little hose reels or whatever they are there, and there's a few other little bits and bobs, and there's enough railing to do the superstructure, fore and aft. There's not much superstructure on this. So that meant that I thought, well, there's not much need to go and buy a bloody PE set and go bloody crazy as I usually do. That's it. All I really needed was some railings for around the main deck, and I have quite a bit of spare railings lying around, because I bought a complete PE set for the Grass Bay, and these were the original trumpeter ones. And surprise, surprise, when I was looking through all the different railings I've got, because I've got IJN railings, I've got Royal Navy railings, I've got Russian railing, you know, I've got all kinds of stuff, but to match this pre-dreadnought look, these ones I had for the Grass Bay were perfect. They'll look exactly like what I need. So there we go. All right, so that's about all. There's not going to be a lot of PE in this. Thank goodness. Yes, won't get bogged down with that. But there's just enough to whet our appetite. And here's the brass, right? So the items, I won't get these out of the packets, because really they're not something I can really illustrate or show clearly until we actually use them. But they're masts, and they're made of brass, and they should look really good. I've heard there can be a bit of an issue trying to get the yard arms to stay on there, but we might end up having to solder them or do something, or just put some really good super glue on there. We'll see. We'll be using Zap. And as usual, barrels. Now, they're not very big, these barrels, and whether I will use the secondary ones, they are tiny. And as we saw, the plastic looks pretty good. I might just use the primary ones, because I do like the look of a metal barrel. that you hardly need it for this kit. I mean, but I went and bought them anyway. They weren't much. I think they were about half a shekel, and they were about half a shekel. It was bugger all, and I thought, oh, I'll grab those. See how we go. You know, it doesn't matter if I don't use them. So there you go. One last thing to look at, and that is the pedestals. Oh, these are weighty little things. Weighty little things. So they give you a little diagram on there. So that gives you an idea. Everything's upside down. So yeah, there's a lot of screws and fasteners and all kinds of things. So they've Pontos have done a lovely job in engineering these. And I know a friend of mine had a look, and he'd made his out of a lamp pedestal, as you do, and his it wasn't sort of as good. I think that was Bernard. Bernard did that on his Fletcher, and he had a look at these and went, oh wow, they look really good. And yes, I think they're going to be great. Nice bit of weight in them. So I probably won't need a wooden base, but I might attach them to a wooden base and then the ship, just so the whole thing's nice and secure, and then it'll look really good. So you know, this might be my model of the year for next year. So there you are. That's everything. That's the whole shebang. That's everything I've got to build this Varyag. Oh, g'day. Yeah, well, wasn't that interesting, hey? Isn't there a lot in that kit? Sorry, I was just polishing my medals here, right? This is why I'm wearing my Riverside t-shirt, is that we had our annual awards ceremony, and I came back with a bit of this, you know, a bit of gold, a bit of bronze and everything. That's actually for last year for Model of the Year, which I won with that tank, and then I got, they finally awarded me this one for last year as well, was bronze for Modeler of the Year for all the points I accumulated in competition. And lo and behold, even though I was bloody crook this year and hardly ever bloody turned up, I still got bronze again for Modeler of the Year for those kits I put in. So there you go. It was probably the macaroni plane, a few of those other ones that I did manage to get across the line and put through. So there you go. Got to go and put that in the cabinet with the rest of my bloody awards gathering dust. Now, Varyag, yes, well, how about all of that? Hey, the plastic looks great. The aftermarket stuff doesn't look too challenging. It looks like we can probably get that in. I think this is an interesting enough build without it getting too bloody complex. Like, we're not going to be ripping out chunks of bloody plastic and doing all kinds of craziness like we did the Arizona. This should be, in a lot of ways, an involved build, but it should be a lot easier and a lot more fun. So I have high hopes for the Varyag. And this is just the beginning of me getting back into boats, because, bloody hell, I've missed it. You know, I've knocked around a few submarines lately, but I really have been missing my boats. And all I've been doing is buying the bloody things while I'm sitting around being crook. Well, I'm not crook anymore, so there's going to be a lot more boats, and we'll start with the Varyag, okay? So that's good, call out, yeah. Shouldn't do silly accent. Oh dear, sorry, Russian guys. I know you get all upset. Oh, okay. Well, on that note, I better piss off. So it's goodbye for Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.